guys, welcome back to another episode of I Am I. I am indeed I, aka Joshua Ansley, aka Asshole, Pretty Boy. I've had quite a few nicknames in my time. Bam Bam, whatever, I'm not going to get into it. So, my boy Willie Shakes. Shakespeare. Okay, he's not really my boy, but you know, I like to pretend he's my boy. But like, Willie, what's up, bro? Like, we go way back, like 400 and whatever years. All right, so anyway, Willie Shakes, he said, "To thine own self be true." Scene. Peace. End it. We're done. Thank you very much. You can't fuck with that. To thine own self be true. Like, how important, how powerful that is, right? The issue is, when we go back to another saying, way back, even more so, maybe another 500 or 600 years before that, maybe like 10th century, a Delphic maxim that's know thyself. Because if we don't know ourselves, then how could we possibly be true to ourselves, right? And this is where the issue comes in, is being able to know ourselves. And it gets really fucking confusing on this journey of self. I mean, it gets insanely confusing because you have all different modalities. Whether you're approaching it spiritually, psychologically, religiously, philosophically, you know, everybody has this different perspective, and we use a different vernacular. You know, when we talk about self, are we talking about lowercase self? Are we talking about the capital S self, the higher self? Like, what is this fucking self that we're talking about, right? And then everybody thinks that they know. Like, even these really crazy Jesus motherfucking Christ thought that he knew what was best for everybody. Look, even Jesus couldn't fucking save everybody, right? It just doesn't happen. It doesn't work that way. And everybody fucking dies. Memento mori, right? Even Jesus, or I'm saying using him as this example, there's supposed to be this, like, whatever. Some people are obviously like, who gives a fuck, right? You know, and I get it. But I'm just saying, like, there's nobody that has ever survived entirely, and there's nobody who was able to save mankind. So we got to save ourselves, right? And we have to know ourselves. And that's the whole journey, is like becoming a yogi or understanding the yogi perspective has nothing to do with fucking standing on the fucking thing and doing these bullshit, right? I mean, it doesn't have nothing to do with it. It's a whatever. I'd be extreme to get to that point, right? Because it's a beautiful part of it. The asana practice and the physical practice is a tremendous part of really getting stuff out of the body, right? Like, because it gets stored and trapped in our body. All the trauma, whatever happens, gets all in the body, in our muscles, and our emotions are trapped in there and stuff like that. But this gets into the whole question of, like, who am I? See, this is the major question, right? To know thyself. People are like, I don't even know how to take this journey. And it starts with the simplest question. It's the greatest spiritual practice we can do, is just asking, who am I? Be brave enough to ask that question. Be brave enough to sit in the question, right? And so if you're somebody that's like, I've done this journey for so long, I know now who I am, and I have this stable set, then great. Then fucking own that, right? Because if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Right? If you think you know yourself, then everything's fine. Everything's beautiful. Until you get to some point where it's like, shit ain't working, and you're gonna need some help. Then you go get some help. But I've learned, because I hit that fucking point, that I was like, I don't want to ever stop asking that question, because there's always deeper to go, right? So I have things to offer, I have things to share. It's not like I know what the fuck I'm talking about in terms of your life. I don't fucking know. Nobody can tell you about yourself except you. They can help you. And I mean, they can tell you about yourself, right? Because some of your shit's really fucking obvious to other people. But it doesn't matter unless you have that understanding, unless you have that experience. So in this philosophy that I work with, the idea is that we have faith. We take faith in what people are saying, right? Masters, leaders, whatever, but not blind faith. This is a tradition, which, you know, tradition can really go fuck itself in the ass. But, you know, not all of it, right? Because that maxim, know thyself, that Delphic maxim that is on the walls of the Oracle of Delphi, right, is really, there's also a bunch of ones on there too that are really cool, like, don't depend on strength. It's like, what the fuck does that mean? If you're a stranger, act like it. But it also says rule thy wife. So, you know, obviously that's a bunch of fucking dumb shit. So we got to pick and choose. Be like, you can't just pick and choose. Oh yeah? Watch me. So, where was I? Knowing the self, I totally got fucking lost. So, knowing the self. Nobody has a fucking clue. Oh, that's what it is. So you have faith in what these masters are saying or something like that, so that we can then lead to knowledge. It's not blind faith to just take it on faith. It's faith that leads to knowledge, and that knowledge then leads to the experience, right? And the knowledge, the greatest piece of knowledge, the alpha and the omega that I have discovered on this journey is to understand self, is the fact that the self is who we truly are underneath it all, is absolutely divine and pure. Absolute love, absolute trust, absolute serenity is the source of who we are, right? And so this is just one perspective, though. This is one possibility. Other people would, there's other philosophies that say it completely differently. And I'm really not about getting stuck into any one philosophy, because all the philosophies and everything is just a mode for you to understand and for you to experience yourself onto the deepest possible level that you can. So one modality is to use this concept called the gunas, right? And gunas are basically conditions of being, conditions of matter or understanding or action or emotions or thought or anything, right? It's all of existence basically in this modality works into 3 gunas. So you have the tamasic, rajasic, and sattvic, right? And it's without judgment at all. It's moving from tamasic to rajasic to sattvic, and then ultimately into the 4th state of being, which is trans-sattvic, which is outside of sattva. And that's what the self really is. This is all a matter of creation. So our thoughts, our emotions, our bodies, our action, or everything in this physical world is in this modality of the gunas, right? So you have tamas, which is lethargy, heaviness, inertia. It's inert, right? And then you move into rajasic, which is where a lot of people are, throughout the day in the Western world, constantly going, trying to get things and make things happen and achieve and get and good and all that kind of stuff and accumulate, right? That's rajasic. And then we move into sattvic, which is equanimity, peace, serenity. But it's active, it's aware, but it's peaceful, right? So you can have rajasic or tamasic movement, right? So there can be the sattvic kind of sometimes it doesn't really approach or appear to be tamasic, but it's that they're both a sense of stillness. It's kind of like I equate it to asleep. Tamasic is asleep, and then rajasic is awake, and then sattvic is woke, right? So that's kind of what if we are brave enough to ask the question, who am I? And we're brave enough to look at the details and see and look at ourselves and analyze where we're at with love and respect and honoring where we're at exactly right now at this time. So which parts of ourselves are rajasic and which parts are tamasic and which parts are sattvic, ultimately moving towards that sattvic state. And then ultimately, obviously, towards that trans-sattvic state. But that alpha and the omega, that space of that information, is that at our core that we are absolutely perfect already in our divine core. It's the alpha because that is the beginning. That's the place where we start from, so that we can step back and actually take a look at all our thoughts and our emotions and take a look at where we are rajasic, tamasic, or sattvic, right? And be humble enough to step back and look at all that crap, right? To look at that space. But that's also the omega, because it's actually the space we're returning to once we work through all that stuff in our mind and our bodies and our emotions and all that stuff, right? Because the ultimate idea is that we are not our thoughts, we are not our emotions, we are not our bodies. The I, we are the I, that space, right? I am young, I am old, that changes. Our bodies change. I am happy, I'm sad, our emotions change. I am rich, I am poor, our status changes. All that changes, but that I stays absolute steady, right? So from that place of steadiness, we're able to observe and look at ourselves and see, it's kind of like if you're doing a 12-step program, it's doing fourth step, right? Like taking an inventory of ourselves, recognizing that that's not actually who we are. That's not to shun and say, well, I didn't do that, that's not me. My mind and body did it, that's not who I am. It's obviously a part of who we are. But the core space of who we really are is this divine nature in our center, right? Now, this is just a teaching. This is just an idea that could possibly work for you. Of course, the teachers will tell you it's not an idea, this is the ultimate truth. I believe that, but actually it doesn't matter, because really it just sets us up in a psychology of understanding self. If we are in this space of really believing that there is a space inside of us that is absolutely pure and beautiful and love and serenity already, then from that position we can humbly look at all the shit in our lives and see where maybe it's causing our emotions and our thought programming is causing the shit in our lives. And the other thing is that we think that we're happy, but we're fucking not. And who's gonna fucking tell you that you're not happy if you say I'm happy, right? The idea is that it's just this bliss beyond what we could possibly imagine. It's so beyond, you know, but the thing is that leaders and different teachers will try to tell us all different ways of doing it, right? But all of it is just a modality for you to experience your life, and it is your process and it is your life. So if you don't want to fucking do it, you might just not be ready, and you'll be like, well, I'm fucking ready. No, that's all your ego bullshit, right? You humbly recognize where you're at. You're not ready to climb fucking Mount Everest, then don't fucking go out there naked climbing Mount Everest. Maybe you learn how to climb, right? It's a slow process. The alpha and the omega is the I am that I am. So it's all about getting to know self, and this is just one modality, right? One modality of understanding the different koshas, the bodies, that I am not, you know, the physical body or the mental body or the energetic body or the intellectual body or the bliss body, right? And understanding our desires are coming from that bliss body, and we have this idea. See, it's like people interpret and think they have no fucking clue what they're talking about. They were all just, even the great masters were all just some dudes or women that figured it out or figured something out and are trying to fucking share it, right? They're just other people. Nobody is anything other than people. But that's not to diminish people. As people, as human beings, we are actually incredibly fucking way beyond what we could ever imagine we are as human beings. So it's not to bring them down, it's to lift ourselves up. It's like, I remember I went to a program one time and somebody was like talking about Jesus, and he was like, well, I don't see any Jesus Christ here. And I was like, well, then fucking open your eyes, motherfucker, because it's everywhere. Every single one of us has that magnitude and power inside of us. But that is my perspective on self. So what's your perspective? Is being willing and brave enough to ask that question, who am I? And sit in that question, sit in the possibilities of that question, not just looking for the resolution and in the answer, but allowing ourselves to sit in the wonder and the possibilities of that question. Who am I? In Lakesha Lakin, I am you, you are me. Namaste. What? Too much? And Shakespeare didn't really say that, though. He wrote it. You know, Polonius said it. Or I guess Polonius didn't even say it really either, too. Richard Burbage, or whoever played fucking Shakespeare, said it.